Welcome to today's update. Today we have, it's actually January 2023 update. I try to now make every month more or less an update for my big fish tank as well as the frag tank I have, and just show you guys what I changed within that month, and just that I also have some little reference for me that I see how much the coral grew, and that I can always look back and see the progress and can keep a little bit track for all of it. When you look at the reef tank, I did actually on the left island side here, I did a little bit of update. I actually took that purple stylophora down from the top. So on that little peak there, you see I have now two little acrofrags. And I had the stylophora here on the bottom, always up there, but it grew that much that it kind of shaded me the whole little left island. So all the corals underneath didn't got enough light, so they kind of bleached a little bit and lost a little bit coloration. So I decided to do something which also helps me a little bit to keep that green Capricornis here a little bit in, to not grow over the whole tank. So what I did is actually on that Capricornis, I broke some of the inner pieces out and I put two corals on top of it, just to hope that it kind of holds back a little bit the growth. So on the bottom here, I put the stylophora inside, and there on the back, I also had some red digitada, which you can see here, which I put on top of that coral. Those are both montipura corals, so they can actually touch each other without having any issues. There's a lot of other corals, if they touch each other, then one of them is going to die, which you see maybe here on that side. I have that acro there on the top, and actually also there was a little piece of red digitada underneath, and you see exactly where the acro actually touched the montipora. The montipora died off and the acro won, which is actually a great thing because the acro is definitely a little bit more the valuable coral. So it's kind of, I'm glad that actually the montipora died back and not the acro itself. But with those ones here, that's absolutely no problem. The stylophora, you see it's kind of, the polyps are more bushy and floushy than ever before and nicely out, so it definitely gets still a good amount of water movement as well on that side, and especially from the par level in the tank, in that kind of area, when you look, that's pretty much in the middle of the tank. I still have around 250 to 285 or something like this par when I measured it the last time with a par meter. So that's definitely still more than enough for that coral. So I placed that down, and it actually kind of filled a little bit nicely in with that Capricornis. When you think about how natural reef in the wild, how they progress, it's the same thing. It's kind of a coral underneath. Sometimes a new one comes on the top, and then they just take over. And like a lot of these old reefs in the ocean, they're actually built just by coral constantly growing on top of each other's, obviously for hundreds and thousands of years, which I probably don't have that much time to grow that into that aquarium, but that's how it happens in the wild. So that's one thing, and especially because I was able to put that one down, I had a little bit more space here on top. And maybe you saw in the last video, I got these 3 acrofrags. I think one is a red Cadillac. That's that other green purple one. I think there was something with a purple banana or something like this, I think was the name. And they have now a very prominent spot directly under the light. So when you look, my RedSea 160, it's directly underneath, so they definitely don't have any issues with getting light. Probably in that depth of the tank, I'm getting around 350 pars I have now both my RedSea 160S, they are actually running on 100% blue and 100% white. Even with 100% white, I get actually a lot of questions around what kind of color temperatures and things I'm running on my lights. And especially for the main display, I like a very bright color temperature, almost like the old metal halide lights, which definitely have more white than blue, because it kind of brings the coloration from the fish much better out. If you go heavy blue, sometimes the fish look a little bit funny in the coloration. So I just kind of like the more white. Obviously, I think in the past when I did more blue, which I also run here on the Frag Tank, that's actually a good thing to cover some issues, because if you have a lot of little algae thing going on in the tank, if you have it more on the bluer side, you actually don't even really see that good. So that's the only downside. If you have it heavy white and you have a lot of nuisance algae and all kinds of stuff, then you obviously definitely see that. As well as if you see here my sand bed, if you have it heavy white, you also see here that little discoloration in the sand. It's almost a little bit yellowish green there, which you definitely see less when you run the lights more on the blue spectrum. But I like it that way, and I just kind of at the moment need all the power I can get from these lights. So that's why I run them on 100%. I'm even constantly debating with myself if I should run a T5 combo. So T5, the blue plus lights together with the RedSea 160s. But the downside, or not really a downside, it's more a visual thing. When I have the T5, I loosen all the that little sparkling in the water. So when you look at that sparkling, you see it especially on the sand bed. If you have a lot of T5 lights, you lose that a little bit, so it looks then a little bit less dramatic. So I just kind of like that dramatic look when it has the shimmer. I think you guys call it shimmer here, not sparkling. It's the shimmer on the sand bed, and you have that also on the coral and everywhere. I definitely like that. So maybe I just go then at one point with another RedSea 160S light. I still could place that there in the middle. So I would have then 3 of those lights. But I don't really want to pay the full retail price. I'm constantly watching eBay at the moment till I find a good deal. I actually, a couple weeks ago, there was somebody advertising that light or selling the light for, I think it was $350 with the actual mount, with the light mount. So I should have gotten that deal, but kind of I missed out on that. So, but I'm sure at one point somebody else will maybe try something else, and then they will sell their light. So maybe then I catch that one. But maybe if you guys have any, like just your experience with when you went from full LED to back to a hybrid system or something like this. The growth, definitely. I had it on my RedSea Max Nano. I had actually a T5 combo together with the ReefLed 50 back in the days, maybe 2 years ago. And the growth was dramatically increased after I had the T5 there, because it gives you so much more light to the coral that everything actually exploded from a growth point, which is obviously very nice to have. It's a good problem to have, right, if your corals grow. But at the moment I cannot complain. I mean, when you look into my tank here, I made so many frags, so many new frags last weekend. So I cannot really complain that my corals are not growing fast enough. So yeah, let's see, maybe in a couple weeks I have a little surprise, and at one point make a video with completely new lighting or light setup. Yeah, but for now I still want to hold back because things are growing good, so why spending a lot of new money for something that's actually not really a necessity at the moment. But again, I put the coral down here. Another nice thing, because I had always these two acros here right underneath, and they got also heavily shaded by the Stylophora. So now, since the Stylophora is gone, obviously they are in full light, and you see also the polyp extension on that acro below is actually crazy at the moment. They absolutely go nuts, these polyps coming out, waving in the current. The only thing that constantly goes and bothers it is the cleaner shrimp. He always kind of goes up there and hangs out on that coral, and then obviously that bothers the coral a little bit. Also the Bali Slimer, it has these two huge arms that spread out. They always had enough light, but the core base here in the middle, that one was actually always as well a little bit shaded by that Stylophora on the top. So I'm kind of then also interested to see how that comes back. When you see there's actually one piece I had to cut off. That's why you see there's a little bit, it almost looks like a tree that got cut off. How quickly that grows then back. I actually made a frag out of that one, and the frag, as soon as it got again enough light, it actually came back to life quite nice. Then another thing I made is actually I trimmed back that cherry montipura here on the bottom, so that kind of spread here very much to the right where I have that blue mushroom. So I kind of just trimmed that one a little bit back. The montipura, especially the plating one, is usually not even really a problem to cut back, but that one encrusts very much over the rock, so that was a little bit more problematic to cut back, but I think it kind of turned out nicely. So the mushroom has now definitely a lot of light, as well as the Cyphastria here, the pink one. That one has now also again a good source of light, so I'm also kind of excited about that one. The branching part of it definitely looks super nice. I absolutely love that. And then right behind you see the 24 karat gold Leptoceris, which also I hope soon kind of starts to grow a little bit more. And especially that color, that yellow, when you look at especially that island here, there's a lot of green, a lot of red, and then some blue and that kind of kryptonite green there on the side, so that yellow just gives a super cool addition to the coloration of that side of the reef. Yeah. Then if we move to the right island, what you see here is I still have my little frag rack up, and because I fragged some frags, if that's even a word to say, from that rainbow millipora there on the top. So I got probably 4 or 5 very nice little frags. One of them I was already able to give to somebody. Two more of them are reserved for a couple reefer friends in the area. But if somebody is still into these rainbow milliporas, hit me up if you're in the Nashville area, and then you come to my house and pick it up. It's just kind of the rainbow millipora there kind of tables nicely to the back, when you see that here, maybe underneath the pump, and some branches also went to the front, and because I want to have the other acro grow there, so that's why I fragged them away. I don't know if you can see that there on the bottom. There's these new green Acrofrags, so hopefully they take over and then complete a new colony on that side of the island. Other than this, I also fragged a lot for that. It's a WWC slime ball and acropora, which also grew a lot. You see also there some cut-offs, which I was able to take some very good thick frags away, as well from the Jason Fox TNT and acropora out there in the back. I was also able to make some very nice frags out of that one. And then here in between there was actually that red digitada, which I kind of put here a little bit below, because I don't really want the same thing like on the left side. I don't want that purple Capricornus takes over the whole tank. So I try to put some corals on top, that it stops it a little bit from growing upwards. So if it grows sidewards or more down, that's not really a problem, but upwards. I like to have then on the top all kinds of new acros, and there's more than enough lights for the montipuras on the bottom below. I actually even thought, when you look here between the red digitada and that, which I actually always thought it's a German blue digitada, but the more I kind of make my research, I think that's just kind of a bird's nest, which is just ultra slow growing. Because when I actually really looked up pictures from the German blue montipura digitada, that definitely looks different. But that's how you always kind of learn new things. But when you look here between that kind of bird's nest and that red digitada, there's kind of a little bit of spot here on top of the Capricornus, where that little fish there is at the moment. So my theory or my idea was that I get that ocean blue stylophora there on the back, and maybe place that then there on the top, because I have here red digitada and the red plating Capricornus here on the side, and the purple one, so kind of that blue would give a great little addition and a great little color spot to that island. So maybe in some weeks I place that then differently. Another thing which actually doesn't even really has anything to do with the coral, but I'm pretty proud of it because I finally got my cyano situation a little bit under control here. So for the ones who follow my tank, especially here on the back, and I don't really even think it was because of the flow, but I had here around that green goblin and acropora, I had a lot of cyano on the sand bed. And the way I got that away is not putting any medication in the tank. I know there's that cyano, slime X or whatever kind of chemical you can put in the tank, which helps with that. But I actually never really had a lot of luck with that, and I just hate when the skimmer goes then nuts for a couple weeks. So I rather try to do it without it. So what I did is just kind of always siphoned out a little bit of the sand where I had the cyano inside, and just kind of throw then away the amount of sand I siphon out. I didn't even replace it because I just kind of, the sand for me is more kind of to have the floor or the bottom of the tank covered, but I don't really need any kind of thick sand bed. I also get that question actually quite often in the comments, that people say like, so Thomas, how do you make that sand bed always so nice? It's obviously also a little bit sometimes how I do then the coloration on my video. Maybe it's also a little bit the equipment I have, that the sand looks that white, but I think it's mostly because it's not that deep. When you look here, when I go a little bit down, I think my sand bed is probably only around 1/2 inch thick at the most. And I think if you have it, it's the Caribsea Reef-Grade sand, so it's a little bit on the coarser side, it's not that fine. And especially when you don't have it that crazy deep and you have a lot of current in the tank, I think like kind of almost like the detritus doesn't really have any chance to stay in the sand bed, and it kind of constantly moves it away. So I think that's also why I'm maybe on the luckier side that my sand is nice and white. Even if you ask me, I definitely wouldn't say it's very white. I definitely have here and there some spots. You see even here behind the island. But yeah, overall I cannot complain at all. Like, I had some of the previous fish tanks or reef tanks I also had a lot of issues with constantly stuff in the sand bed, but that one at the moment is pretty stable. So no issues on that one. When you look to my other tank, to the Frag Tank, especially because I had here fish inside a couple weeks ago, so that usually throws the whole ecosystem completely havoc. So that's why you see there on the bottom there's actually quite some, it's probably a mix out of cyano and dinos and everything a little bit. I heavily dosed that tank with Brightwell Neo Nitro, because otherwise my nitrate as well as my phosphate is actually bottom out a little bit. So that's why I have to get a little bit a hold of that cyano and everything there. But again, I'm pretty happy I don't have that issue here really in the big tank. The big tank is really stable. I moved it in here in my little fish room. The tank, I think it was maybe half a year ago, but the system is up in total for already almost 2 years. And as impatient as I am always in the beginning, usually I think for now I always just have to remember that a fish tank usually after 1 year gets into that stable spot that you can more or less almost do inside whatever you want, and it just kind of turns out happy. You can put in a coral and it just starts growing. Especially when you're in that newer age, when you're just kind of in a couple weeks or couple months. I don't want to say you cannot grow coral at all, because that's actually not true. You can even probably grow an acrocoral even if the tank is only 2-3 weeks old, but it's just much harder, and there's just a bigger possibility that you have any kind of negative effects or something like this. Yeah. Okay, but other than this, I think that's more or less everything I done in the tank. What I also saw is here that little Ganipora gets actually quite shaded by the montipura on top. So there's definitely no growth going on there on the left side. So maybe I moved in that. It's a not attached little rock where the Ganipora is on. So I probably go to move that a little bit out, just that it has enough light that it actually. My idea is that it grows over the whole rock, and then I either sell it then at one point, or I can just place it wherever I want to have it. But then at least it doesn't spread to the whole tank. Another coral that actually gets more and more growth is that starburst montipura here. It definitely starts now plating and makes that little rose shape here, very much like that. I think it also doesn't really get that much light, because it's when you think the little Reefwave 45 is sitting right above, so you have the light here on the top, and then that one actually shades a tiny bit the coral underneath. So that would also be a big advantage if I would have a T5 hybrid light on the top, because all these corals on the bottom would get way better source of light. Yeah, but let's then see if I make that move. Okay, I think that's more or less the update to the big tank. Then on the Frag Tank itself, you see I got a couple good frags. So the upper left section there, that's all the slime ball and acropora, followed by some Bali Slimer frags. Then the red pieces I have there is the Jason Fox TNT and acropora. And then here on the right side I have a little bit struggling corals. I have the green digitada, which is actually not doing too good. So when you think that's actually the mother colony here, and it has very, very thick polyps, so you barely see actually the skeleton underneath. But here they are still a little bit struggling. They're heavily encrusted over the frag plug as well. So I'm sure they still can come back. They're definitely far away from already dying, but I'm still kind of hope they acclimate a little bit to that new light, because now they definitely get enough light. That was a little bit of a problem with the ReefLed 50. Now they have definitely better light. And then this small frags, you almost think they're absolutely dead. That's actually red montipura digitada. You actually barely see polyps at all. I'm still giving them a chance to come back, but they're definitely here a little bit struggling. Little green Capricornis frag. And then here, especially for people who come and pick up some corals, it's actually a very nice coral here, that's an acropora. I have probably still like 10 pieces of that guy. They grow pretty quick, and it's just a nice coloration to the tank, so they are definitely very trendy corals. Then I have still 4 montipura setosa frags, and then just kind of a bunch of different montipura capricornis frags. All the frags are from my big tank, and again the idea here with my frag tank is just kind of to grow out some coral frags, because especially when I have to groom some corals in my big system, it just almost hurts a little bit my heart when I always have to just kind of throw it away. And I also don't really want too many frag racks in my big system. I actually also would like to have that one gone here. But these rainbow milliporas, they're definitely too valuable to just put in the other tank and kind of suffer a terrible death. So that's why I leave them in that tank, just that I know that I can make it and that I can give that to my reefer friends. But other than this, I don't really want any frags in that system. That's why I just try to kind of, and I know I will get there, kind of use that RedSea Max Nano here as a frag tank. I also already play with the thought about maybe buy a little bit a better frag tank. Because when you look just literally from the shape, and I was pretty lucky because I found these frag racks on Etsy. They are actually custom made. There's a lot of different sellers on Etsy who make custom frag racks like this. They're not even that expensive. And it fits now that aquarium, but it's kind of like almost, I don't have enough kind of room to have then a lot of frags, so it's, that aquarium would be better. Maybe I make a little softy tank or a seahorse tank or something like this with the frag tank. But for now I just, especially with the upgraded light with that AP700, now I definitely don't have a bottleneck on light for that tank. Now I just have to figure out the stability and everything. I also kind of thought about maybe try to exchange the water with a Neptune dose, that I can make auto water changes from the big system directly to that one. But I also don't want to overcomplicate the whole reef system and kind of put another point of error inside. So the last thing I want to have is that kind of something goes wrong with a sensor or something like this, and then I dump a lot of water on the bottom. So I definitely don't want to do this, so that's why I still go the manual way and exchange always some water from the frag system into the big aquarium and vice versa. So it's a little bit work, but I know we all love our work around the fish tank. But that's it. It's already It goes quick when we talk about our favorite hobby, right? We're already like 30 minutes in. But that's just what I try now, is just kind of giving you guys a little update, that you see how things are growing, that you kind of make your own decision if you want to maybe go with similar corals, and just kind of share a little bit the progress of my systems here. Okay, tune in again, at least in a month. I try to make now every month a little update about the system. And thank you very much for your support, your patience with me, and see you next time.